Welcome to 1850 Main Street, a place where friends get together and talk about their country and hope for a brighter future. Your hosts have built this spot over the past 40 years, meeting every day with people who are in the headlines and behind the real stories.
David Zanotti, Rob Walgate, Alan C. Duncan, and Jeff Sanders are all at the table, joined today by a special guest who attended the July 13th Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, and experienced the whole thing from just a few rows away.
So the only subject that has been dominating news and radio is obviously what happened on a Saturday afternoon in Butler, Pennsylvania. Ironically, we've got a lot of friends in Butler, Pennsylvania, and we've been there many times. Rob Walgate, you've got a lot of friends in that region of the country as well, and you've been around there a lot of times. And in a few minutes, we're going to meet one of them who also happens to have been one of the people who was at the Trump rally when the assassination attempt occurred. And I think that this is going to be a different kind of conversation. Now, I want to put a disclaimer out on what we're about to do here. This is not an attempt to glom on to the story, to jump up on the wagon and get somebody to notice you. This is one of these unusual experiences when somebody that Rob knows and is known for a lifetime, who also happens to be career law enforcement, was not just sitting at the rally, he was sitting center stage a few feet from the president. And if you replay the tape, we can show you who he is. The whole world's seen him about 100,000 times since this all happened. So, Rob, tell us about your friend.
David Mosura, the Mosura family, great Western Pennsylvania family. I've known him my whole life. We went to church together at Boyce Church in East Liverpool, Ohio. And David and his brother are both in law enforcement.
David's a Boyce Church guy.
Yeah, the Mosura family.
I tell you what, those people go to the top of my list always because I've been to Boyce Church a bunch of times, and these are some wonderful, wonderful people.
So we vacationed with their family years ago when everyone was younger. Spent a lot of time with them. Just like I said, him and his brother in law enforcement, always looking to do the right thing. Dave's a combat veteran. Just a great family. When you think about service members or people in law enforcement that are always looking out for others, I think that's the first thing I think about when I think about the Mosura men. That's how they grew up, and that's what they believe to this day. And I think the folks that saw the guy in the red tank top and the bucket hat that had his head on a swivel, covering people, looking around the day that happened in Butler County, they can get a picture of exactly who they are as a family.
So we wanted to go back to the day, and now I believe that if everyone simply closes their eyes and hits the play button, you'll think of the loop that we've all seen about 10,000 times of what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. You're about to hear a few facts that came as quite a surprise to me because they came through the eyes of someone who is a trained professional, career professional, and had eyes that would see. And this is not an attempt to make the event more morbid. But I think that one of the dangers that we have is when we've seen something vicariously over and over and over again, it becomes like a stage play or a movie. It loses the sense that there were real humans there, real people with their feet on the ground. And it may actually help us in our character development to process through this, to be able to hear. We've seen this now from a camera eye view. Think about it. Everything we've seen has been from behind the camera. David and his family are in front of the camera. Now, that also means they're in front of the shooter because they were seated very, very close to the president. And I think that what we want to do is we want to just roll this interview. And let me tell you where the bottom line on all of this is. We are not, if you're looking for a conclusion on the conspiracy, we won't have that conversation in great detail because I think seeing this from a different angle might help some of that conversation, and it might create more space for people to spend more time thinking before they move to judging. But one thing we do want to talk about, and we'll get to it toward the end of this program, is the GoFundMe accounts that are existing for people who were injured at this event. The tragic loss of life of a wonderful dad and a firefighter who laid his life down to save his family. The other folks who came there as a part of their citizenship, their conscience, their responsibility, expressing what they believe in life, who lost their lives that day. And then we want to take a minute also when this is done. We want to talk about providence, because there's been a lot of conversation about that. But before we get to those kinds of conversations, let's listen to this testimony from someone who was on front of the camera and in front of the shooter on that fateful Saturday.
Well, on Saturday, when news broke of what happened at the Trump rally in Butler, PA, I was out of town with family friends, and I got a text from Melanie Elzey, and we immediately turned the news on. When we turned the news on, I was with friends that said, "Hey, look at the guy in the red tank top and the bucket hat a couple rows behind the president." And I looked, and I knew immediately. I said, we all said, he said, "You know who that is?" I said, "Yeah, that's David Mosura." And I was like, wow. And immediately Jerm, our family friend, started texting with David. They were texting back and forth what happened. But David had a front row seat to everything that took place in Butler, PA that day. And I've known David and his family for a long time. David's in law enforcement, his brother's in law enforcement, amazing family that I grew up going to church with. So we've invited David to join us today to give us that firsthand experience of what he witnessed, what he saw, what he was a part of on Saturday at the Donald Trump rally in Butler, PA. David, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
David, if you're comfortable with this, could you give us a background as far as your actual law enforcement background? It's kind of looks to me like today, as we're talking to you, you're about 2 steps from being on duty right now.
Yeah, that's very accurate. So I've been a policeman since I was 20 years old, actually. So I'm 43 now, so it's been 24 years. I grew up in Beaver County, right across from the Ohio border. I've been doing it really the only real job I've ever had in my life. So kind of, hopefully it's to the point now where it's winding down and getting to the end of it. I've done this. I was on a SWAT team for 8 years. I'm a detective now and just winding it down, trying to get to the end.
You're in very good company here, and actually with just meeting you, you're instantly respected and appreciated. Your family also has background with the state police in Pennsylvania, I understand.
Yeah, they do. My brother.
Yeah, and my family does as well. I have a cousin who retired out at the major level with the state police.
Okay.
He taught us to love that community of people. And for over the years. And so we've got a great affinity. And of course, Rob's across the river. My family was originally from New Kensington. We have many, many dear friends in Butler, Pennsylvania. And so like most people who have any idea of Butler County or the city of Butler, this would be the last place on the earth that anyone would have expected the news that rocked all of our worlds. I left a meeting with one of our trustees at 5:00 in the afternoon. And by the time I got halfway home, my phone was exploding. And needless to say, by the time I got to the television set, I saw a lot of that guy in the tank top shirt with the bucket hat. And it seemed like on the video, there was 4 major players. And I couldn't help but to think that all 4 of them on the screen, as you watched it left, right, center, that they all 4 had to be law enforcement because they all responded exactly like law enforcement did. Everybody ducked, they stood up. Or everybody ducked, they instantly started looking for what was happening next. You could tell the training and the dedication. And I thought to myself, bucket hat guy's got to be a cop. And that's you.
Yeah.
So tell me what your day started like that day. I mean, you're on your way as an American citizen, as an honest patriot to go to a political rally. What were you thinking? What was the day?
Well, I mean, you can see on TV, it was beautiful outside. It was hot, but it was beautiful. I mean, we were all excited, it's not everybody in the world doesn't get to meet or catch a glimpse of a president, a sitting president or a former president. It doesn't happen all the time. Or if you do, it's from an extremely far distance. And we knew going into that day that we had very good seats and it was going to be a great opportunity, you know. So it was me and my sister and her husband and my niece, my brother's daughter, and we were excited. We were having a great time. Even the whole time before when we first got there, even just waiting in line, it was a great crowd. It was just a very enthusiastic, patriotic, just a very uplifting crowd.
Thanks for stopping by at 1850 Main Street. We're glad you're here. Do you want to learn more about what's really going on behind the scenes in public policy? Tune in to the Public Square on over 200 radio stations coast to coast, or download the free Public Square mobile app from your app store. Just look for The Lamppost. Find out what America's talking about at thepublicsquare.com.
Well, when we saw you and we saw obviously the crowd and everything, I guess with what happened, the chaos of it all. Dave mentioned your law enforcement training, and weren't you sitting in an area of other law enforcement guys that kind of were not, I mean, obviously you guys are trained to run towards it, not away from it. So you were trying to assess the situation of what was taking place.
Yeah, so there was uniformed police. There was guys that were working the detail. There was some family members that were around us that were their parent. There was some, I call them kids, but they're adults. Their parents are in law enforcement. I'm not particularly sure of anybody, unless I'm not remembering, that was around us that was in law enforcement besides me.
So you're having a wonderful patriotic day, and the president's about 6 minutes into the speech. Could you see the slides, by the way, from where you were sitting?
Yeah. So where we were sitting, they were on an angle next to us. And
okay.
Yeah, we could see them real well. They kept showing videos.
I've always wondered how people get those seats at any political rally. I mean, those are like who gets picked to sit behind the candidate?
Well, number one, get there early, no matter what, because nothing's guaranteed when you go to these things. This is the second time. Well, it's actually the third time I've seen them. I met them one time, but nothing's ever guaranteed. Like it's never guaranteed you're going to sit anywhere. It's basically, we'll do our best to get you somewhere. And so we had to get there pretty early. We sat there for probably 5 hours before he came out.
Wow.
And if you look in the video, my arm, I'm red from the sun.
Wow.
But, yeah, so you still have to get there early. You still have to, kind of fight for your spot. But we did. It was. I don't want to say you had to fight for it, but if you showed up right at the time it started, you weren't getting nothing.
So you got in. You got great seats, and the president's doing his speech. And we've all seen a tape, but it's impossible from the tape to see your side of the camera. What did you experience?
When he come out, it was exciting. It was still exciting for me for seeing, and like I said, I've seen him before, and it's surreal almost. You see the former, hopefully soon to be president, come out, and that's just a lot of people don't get to experience that, and you just kind of take that all in. And he started talking, and it was probably 5, maybe 10 minutes into it. And that's when the first shot rang out.
Now you're talking with a bunch of people that have heard guns, all right? And we've got an NRA trainer here with us. We've got people here that have got their concealed carries. I mean, we're not unfamiliar with the sound of guns, and so you obviously have spent your whole career around weaponry. So we've heard lots of, forgive me, I don't want to sound condescending, but lots of other civilians like us who said, gee, we thought it was fireworks. My guess is you didn't have any question that it was a shot.
No, I knew right. I knew right away. In fact, I thought the way that it sounded, and I don't know if anything's been released or not yet, but I thought that it was suppressed, meaning it had a silencer on it. For a lack of a better word, a silencer, but a suppressed round, rifle round. I heard the crack, and if you've ever heard a suppressed rifle, it makes a very distinct. It makes more of a crack than it does a bang.
Mm-hmm.
but I could be wrong about that. It just sounded like it. And you heard the first one, the first, and then and then there was a volley of rounds after that. There was probably another 5 or 6 rounds in repeated fire after that. But the first round, now you got to remember, as I'm explaining this was all, it seemed like it's all happened in a matter of 2 or 3 seconds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was crazy. The first round went off, and where I was sitting, I was so close. I actually seen the hair on his hat flip up, under his hat flip up, and there was I've been describing it as a misty debris. There was a misty debris that flew off off of his head. And looking back on it, and that it was probably tissue and maybe some hair from him getting hit. And
So you think it was the first shot that hit him?
so anything I say is not guaranteed. I'm just saying my opinion, what I think. I think it was the first shot that hit him. Number one, your first shot's most of the time going to be your most accurate shot. And if you watch the video, it appears that the second shot rings out. He's putting his hand up already to touch his ear.
Mm-hmm.
By the time the sound travels, the bullet naturally travels faster than sound, but the timing would be off of that. If he's already feeling something to where he's raising his hand,
Yeah,
and that sound's already going off, it leads me to think that he was hit on the first one and didn't feel it until the second one, which that's very common. That's not, especially if it's just something like the tip of your ear. It might take you a second to realize or to feel some kind of pain or a stinging sensation or something to, you know, have to notice that happens. It's very common.
Now, I in light of the other injuries, which one was mortal and 2 are extremely serious, we recognize that getting hit in the ear is a minimal situation. I understand all that, but that also would have had to hurt like crazy when it finally settled. Because I mean, you look at the pictures, like his ear got half torn off.
Yeah. I mean, please don't misjudge anything I'm saying. I'm sure it hurt. I'm saying what I'm implying is that a lot of time it's documented that a lot of times people are shot, they don't know they're shot for the first few seconds.
Takes a while. I mean? Yeah.
And like I said, which bullet hit him, that is just my opinion. That's not
sure. I understand. No, at this stage it's going to be there'll be months of analysis and science and applications, but what it does seem apparent, and Jeff Sanders has joined us. Dr. Sanders and I were literally on the phone breaking down the video while it was going on. And again, we're armchair amateurs compared to you guys in law enforcement and the others that are going to weigh in on this with substantive expertise. But just looking at the body count, so to speak, it appears that 3 shots from that roof hit humans.
So I ended up finding out after the fact that there was multiple other people that were hit. By the time the second shot went off, the Secret Service was already running up on the stage. Because if you watch the video, as soon as Trump grabs his ear, he ducks down. Right. And they're I don't know if they really show, but they're already moving towards the stage. You know what I mean? They're already making up one. The other people that got hit, I seen up in the bleachers. If you're in my position looking out to the crowd to the left, there was a group of people that were motioning for help. And I knew that somebody was shot. I knew that somebody was hit. Because when I first heard the shot, I knew it came from my right. And
got it. That makes sense.
I knew where it was coming from. Mm-hmm. And it would only make sense that there was multiple shots and there's somebody in the stands over there. It would only make sense that the bullet would travel that way, and that's, that somebody would likely get hit, with a straight bullet.
As many times as we've seen the footage, Dave, I can't see where the other people are that got hit, but I hear that
they don't show the bleachers. They don't. So the bleachers that I was in was directly behind him. Nobody in our bleachers got hit. There was a set of bleachers to my right and a set of bleachers to my left, and they were angled. if that makes sense. They were like,
Yes.
kind of like a semicircle. There was like a moon shape of bleachers there. And if you were there and you seen where the building was, or where I heard the shots come from, it would totally make sense that somebody over there would get hit. I'm surprised. I'll be honest with you. I'm surprised more people over there didn't get hit.
Yeah, that comes to the question of how many rounds actually the shooter was able to execute. We don't know that. I've heard reports that there were many more. People have tried to judge between the sound of the shots going back and forth. I mean, this is a little bit like Dealey Plaza right now. We're going to be at this for a long time.
Yeah, and you can't do that. Like people, they got to understand. And I'm sure your NRA guy can say, when you have bleachers like that are in a bowl, and you have buildings, there's going to be echo. There's going to be, like I said, I naturally first assumed that it was a suppressed rifle round. But I, going back and listening to the tape, going back and watching, the video again, it didn't so much sound like a suppressed rifle round the second time listening to it. The final shot was a suppressed rifle round. There's not a doubt in my mind that the final gunshot you hear, that was a suppressed rifle.
And that would have been coming from law enforcement engaging the shooter.
I mean, I can't speak. I can't speak to that. I'm just saying.
No, I understand.
Yeah, common sense would tell you.
So you were, in essence, you were at an event as a spectator, but you're never not a professional. I mean, that's what comes with the territory as a law enforcement person.
A lot of times I'd rather be a spectator, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
This conversation isn't over yet, so come on back next time and pull up a chair at 1850 Main Street. To help spread the word, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To find out more, visit 1850mainstreet.com. We'll see you soon.